Welcome into the Arizona Media Podcast. I've worked with some very talented people, and while Kaley O'Kelly and I are about to hear from in a second, did not sit side by side. When I was at 3TV, the word on Kaley O'Kelly was hard worker, got it done. When I was there and saw her do her thing, even a better person than a worker, and she decided to go make the run to Dallas, and now she is back at ABC 15 in the morning. She's put a couple of shows under her belt. And I figured as though it's time to have her come on the Arizona Media Podcast because, as I've talked about on this podcast through the years, the idea of trying to be a mother, from what I have seen and observed, is just brutal if you want to be in TV news at night. It's just brutal. And so Kaley tried it and she succeeded at it. And then she did what I think most sane people do, and that's, I need to be a mom. Or I need to be a dad in my case when I almost lost my wife and almost lost our little guy our fourth guy on delivery. I just looked around and said, what am I doing? So Kaley O'Kelly, nice enough to come in and join us on the Arizona Media Podcast. It is good to hear your voice. It's good to see you on my TV in the morning. How are you?
You're giving me chills. Literally, Brad, I have goosebumps all over my body. You nailed it. It is so incredibly true, the balance between let me rephrase it. The nightmare balance between work, life, family, and trying to remain sane and sort of be all things to everything in your life. You have to make a choice, even though sometimes it's super hard. We have to do it. And I remember when you made that choice, and I know that it was gut-wrenching for you, but I don't think, and you and I haven't talked about it, but I'm sure you never look back and have been sorry about it.
No. And I think, look, here's the thing. I go back to my aha moment was, okay, I've got a producer who's calling me who wants me to go to San Diego to go get Randy Johnson 2 days after my wife almost bled to death delivering our fourth child. And that producer was kind of pushy about it. And I just said, are you hearing yourself? And this happens in our industry, where we're very passionate about what we do. And that was my aha moment. This isn't about me, though. What was your aha moment when you got in the vehicle and you're driving home at night, I'm imagining, or something during the day, because you had medical stuff too. Something, you had something that just clicked and said, I can't do this anymore.
All right. There were a series of things. The medical stuff I have learned looking back was a byproduct, I believe, of what really became sort of a life, and I don't want to say misery because that seems like such a strong word, but when, you on a resume, you're at the top of your game.
Right.
Everything seems to be going your way. You're farther ahead of where you actually figured you'd ever land. But when you're looking at the grand scheme of things and you're getting sick and you're fighting cancer, and you just don't feel good, it's sort of like you have to have that come to Jesus meeting and say, okay, what isn't going well? And for me, it was like everything. So I'll never forget that moment when the boss shut the door in Dallas. He went home for the night at 6:45, and I'm sitting there with a group of sharks, and they all own that rightfully. And I'm thinking, I'm not cut from this cloth. Mm-hmm. And so my executive producer at the time turned around, was getting ready to go home and read bedtime stories to my 18-month-old at the time and 3-year-old. And she said, oh, no, we don't take a lunch. And I thought, oh, okay, all right. So I'm going to navigate this. It's going to be okay. But here I was 3.5 years later, which was in March. And we talked about maybe a new assignment for me there. And then I found that management didn't want to move me. We were doing pretty well as a team at 10 o'clock, and that wasn't in the cards for me. And I just decided there was just that moment where I thought, this can't be the only job out there. Mm-hmm. This can't be it. So I had to step out on faith, and I had to know that I wasn't going to be making any money if I made the right choice for myself and my family, at least not for a little while. And so I did. There was just that moment where I thought, it's going to be okay. And I was scared to death. Mm-hmm. But for the first time in my life, there was true faith there, because I knew I could work at Starbucks. And I knew they had a decent benefits plan. And I mean, I might not be able to save money, but I knew that I could live simply. And that was it. And I realized in that moment, and I tell anybody who will listen, that the moment came when I knew that I didn't have to fit myself into the only peg that was being offered to me. But it was scary.
Yeah.
But I am so much happier now for doing it.
Well, you know, you are a woman of faith too, and I'm a man of faith, and so the faith part of it is you don't know really what you're made of until you are being stretched, right? And so you don't know if you really believe in this stuff. And so you go through the stretching part, and the stretching actually makes you stronger, I do believe. So in your case, you were probably missing the parent-teacher conference meetings. You were going to be missing the parent-teacher conference meetings, or you're having the kids brought by and at your desk, which I've seen.
Yep.
I've worked when I worked at 3TV, I saw female front-facing talent at night have their kids come in, sit at their desk, do their homework while they were on the air reading, and they were bawling during the breaks to me about it. So this was nothing new, but on the outside, everybody sees the smiley, happy news deliverer, front-facing talent, but on the inside, that person is miserable. Am I hitting you on the head here on this one?
Directly. And there was a point when I'm not a quitter. You make a deal and you follow through on that deal. And that's how my mom and dad raised me. But yeah, it was almost instant, because when I moved to Dallas, you know, I went because I thought I was going to be doing a 4 p.m. newscast. It wasn't, it was one of those things where that's what I auditioned for. But then, I got promoted.
Yeah, you did well. You did well.
And I was grateful for it, but it was one of those things, gosh, you don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. But I never wanted to be a main anchor. And again, grateful for the opportunity. But, this is about life quality stuff. And, I learned that in my quest to make sure I didn't let anybody down, the only person I was really letting down was myself and my family. And I feel pretty lucky that I was able to look at that and go, this isn't feeling right. I think my health was kicking me in the gut going, guess what? You can't do this. You can't do this, because the stress is killing me. And more than anything, I think the guilt was killing me, and my desire to want to be home and not pass my kids on the road while I'm going to work and they're coming home from school. It just wasn't enough for me. That's not what life is supposed to be about.
Tell me about the health. Give the audience just a minute or two of what you went through and where you are now.
So a couple of years ago, it was, I want to say November of 2015, having some really, really terrible stomach pains. And it turned out it was an ovarian cyst that appeared to be cancerous. And so there were a lot of concerns that I had ovarian cancer. And luckily, Dr. Dennis Eckel out of Scottsdale is a phenom. And I was able to get him to operate on me. And we were able to salvage, one side of, I guess, one ovary. And then, and he said, we're going to keep it there and try to keep everything sort of normal as a female. And then a couple of years later, it was actually just this past December, everything started acting up again, same kind of pain. I called him, ran a series of tests, and he recommended a hysterectomy, full hysterectomy right away. So, 2018 has been crazy because I came back to Arizona. I was at the end of a contract. It was a forced medical leave, 6 weeks, and something happened during those 6 weeks where I had the surgery. I was in recovery. I was here in Arizona a lot, and that was when my aha moment happened. I thought, it's time to take care of myself and just chill out, slow down. And in those 6 weeks, I really got to have a glimpse of what life would be like, not running and gunning.
I adjunct at Cronkite, just one class a year, and I think process is really important for college students. But I think in doing this podcast through the years, I found people are really interested in the process, Kaley, of how did you connect the dot of getting from Dallas of employment to Phoenix of employment. The general manager at ABC 15 is the well-regarded, well-respected Anita Helt. Did she reach out to you? Did your agent handle this? Take us through process.
I'm so glad that you asked me this. The answer is no, no, and no. In fact, in the process, I actually ended up dropping my agent because, the best representation of me is me, right? So I think that's the truth for everybody. But again, another fear that I had to face. So I paid off my agent and happy. But what happened was when I let my general manager in Dallas know what was happening, I don't think that they really believed that I was going to be leaving a main anchor position in Market 5. And he said, nobody does this. What are you doing? Is everything okay? And I said, everything's going to be okay. I just need this. I need to do this for me. And so, in the day of social media, here's what's so nuts about this. The station asked me to let the public know that this was my choice, that it wasn't their choice. And I was fine with that. So on my Facebook page, I just, kind of explained what was happening, that it was time for me to just take a break, be a mom for the summer. And I announced what my last day was. Well, the next day, Chris Klein at ABC 15 reaches out to me. And he said, you're not done. What do you think? We've been friends a long, long time. I mean, he ran ABC15.com when I was at ABC 15 back in, 03 to 09, before I went to Channel 3. And he said, you're not done. What are you thinking? Are you nuts? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm nuts, and I'm scared. And he said, look, have you thought about coming back to Arizona? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, that would be a dream come true. But, right now I, really just want to take a break. Why? And he said, well, if you ever wanted a place to call home here, we would love to have you at ABC 15. Now, Brad, I left ABC 15 back in 2009 to go to Channel 3, right?
Right.
And
Sure.
so, but it's always been important to me to keep the backyard clean. You do things right, and everything does come full circle. And it was one of those moments that I said, Chris, I left. I went across the street. He said, we want you back. We want to do this right, but we want to make sure it's right for you. And I mean, every step of the way, I said, I want to spend time with my kids all summer. He's like, I don't know what this looks like. Let me go talk with Anita Helt, and we'll get back to you. And we just kind of kept this open dialogue over, the summer. And then it just evolved into what it is. I started a business and told him about that. He said, you can do your business as long as there's no conflict of interest. And, here we go. It's just been, you talk about faith. I just leaned into God, and I mean, I finally have realized this is not my dance. It just isn't. And I think for really, truly the first time in my life, I believe that. They're not just words of faith, if that makes sense. I mean, I had to step out on faith and into it to make this work. And they get me, they understand me.
The process of a morning show. So it's so different, yet I still believe it is relevant in this day and age where everybody walks around with a phone and consumes their content on a phone. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing on the sports end, because I think that more and more people just consume it on phone. That's not the case with mornings. Mornings, you are going after a different audience, and I do believe that being on in morning is much more important this day and age than being on in the afternoon or evening, just because of so many distractions. That said, how do you design a morning show? You've been at it for 2 days. You have a very, very talented person in Tyson Milanovic, who I've worked with over at 3TV. They give you terrific resources from afar, from what I can see. How do you put about a morning show, and how much involvement do you have in that process?
Well, you mentioned Tyson. He's incredible. We were both lucky enough, as you said, to work with him at Channel 3.
Yep.
Big part of the decision to come to ABC 15. We are in uncharted territory right now with the way digital is. In my opinion, you're absolutely right. The late night news isn't, in my opinion, as important as that early morning time slot. And what's so cool about being part of this whole digital thing is when you work for a company like Scripps, with all the resources we have, you get to explore a space that a lot of other companies don't really have access to, because we do have the resources. We could either look at mobile as something that is a driving force against us, or we could use it to our advantage. And that is what is happening at ABC 15 and at Scripps stations. And management is open to ideas. And that's what's so cool about being part of this company again, because to go away when they had built something called Newsroom of the Future, there was a massive identity crisis because you had all these people who were in heels and suits, not understanding that we were, we had to be part of this news gathering game. And now to go back into that realm, 10 years later with a group of people who completely get digital, driven by digital, resources are there, systems are in place. It's pretty incredible. I mean, the money, obviously that part of the game still needs to be figured out because the digital dollars are not there yet. But when you're part of a group that's willing to try something new,
correct,
to try to figure out where the revenue stream can come from, that's pretty cool.
No, and that's where I'm at. I walked away from TV. I walked away from radio because I saw digital in 2011 as the way to go. And that doesn't mean that there aren't times where it's tough. I mean, if it were tough,
Sure.
if it weren't tough, everybody'd be doing what I'm doing. And I thoroughly enjoy it because you can go 100 different directions. You're not caught up in what's trending on Twitter as you have to go cover that today. No, there's 100 other stories that are going to be trending on Twitter down the road. We're just being ahead of the game. Every station is out at the Cardinals. Every station's going to have the coach saying, yeah, we have a tough game this week. Tell me something I don't know. It's the repetitiveness of the news that I think you've got to find your way through that. And I think in your space, your personality, okay, I'm not sucking up to you. I have no reason to do that, Kaley, okay? All right, but your personality is one that will be a magnet and an attraction. I think in morning shows, you have to have someone that is very well liked and very well regarded. But are you going to have opinion on things? Are you going to have an edge on things? Or do you play it down the middle?
You're asking me that question because I don't play down the middle ever.
Well, if the Cardinals, but here's the thing. In a morning show, if you come on the air and the Cardinals lose and they turn the ball over 5 times and they lose by 3 touchdowns, you can't be wearing red saying, our boys, it was so close. Is it, well, it was awful yesterday. It was just really hard to watch. Now, that's not you either. That goes the other extreme. There's a thing that a point that I see in morning shows where there is we're all community, rah, rah, cheer, cheer. But if things don't go right, especially in sports, how do you handle that? Because you're a sports person. You could sit here and do this show.
Die hard.
Yeah, you could sit here and do this show very easily. But if the Cardinals are 4-12 this year, you are going to die hard.
Well, it's going to hurt personally. In fact, I'm on my way out to interview Michael Bidwill as we speak, which is kind of funny. But one of the cool things about working over at Channel 3, I think you'll agree, is that, because it was at the time it was independent,
yep,
we could go there.
Yep.
And that was an absolutely beautiful thing. And I was, much younger back then when I got to go kind of feel that space. And it was a much bigger gift, I think, than we all realized at the time, because we were able to develop our voice and just be who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that let me say this differently. I know that we're all craving a connection to someone who, whether they agree with us, but I don't know that matters more than connecting with someone who kind of gets you, no matter who you are as a
yep,
viewer or a listener or whatever. And, if you fall on the sword for the Arizona Cardinals, either way, I think it's okay to have feelings and opinions, because we have politicians in life who are going to vie for votes, right?
mm-hmm,
And everybody's got a great BS detector. And so if you don't, right? I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're
so
right.
I think if you're,
right.
if you're a Pollyanna and you fake it, nobody wants that.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's annoying. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, yeah, that was a horrible game last night. I wonder what they're going to do to pull it together next Sunday. Something better happen, because heads do roll. It's the NFL.
Wow, listen to you. Jeez. Steve Wilkes, be on edge. Kaley's in town. Take shots.
I'm sorry. I get fired up.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Before I get you out of here, how do you balance a morning show with news versus just fun and people getting to know your personality? How do you do that?
I don't know. I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think for me now, it's a lot more natural than it ever could have been had I gone from a Channel 3 straight back to ABC 15. I mean, I went from Channel 3 being, right next to Scott Passmore and at one time Tara Hitchcock,
Yep.
which was so much fun, an amazing highlight of my career, to going to CBS, which, we all have called sort of the conservative broadcasting system. And I think that really helped to prepare me for where we are right now in this age. We're fighting this notion of fake news. We source everything, which I think is truly important. We go and we get our own sound bites and we do those things. But I think that one of the key components in coming back to news and a news station was being able to add my own 2 cents. Now, that doesn't mean editorialize, but what it does mean is being able to share these stories with Arizona, with a sense of what Arizona wants, needs, loves, and feels, right? Because I am an Arizonan. And I think that I'm hoping that people feel that when they're waking up with us, not just tuning in to get the headlines. We can get that on our cell phone, right?
Right.
But
Right.
You want people to have, that feel-good sense that when they're starting the day, it's not all gloom and doom, right? We all have to have hope. I mean, I think hope is the one thing that makes everybody tick. It's what keeps us going every single day. And at the risk of sounding incredibly cheesy, I think that there is a need for that,
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. That's not cheesy. That's just a fact. What is it you're going to do as a mom now that you weren't able to do when you were sitting there at night? Are you a good cook? Are you going to cook dinners now? I mean, are you good at this, Kaley? Or what are the things you're going to be able to do now that you weren't able to do? Are you going to coach the soccer team for your kids? I don't know.
Yes.
Are you?
I am. Be horrible at it and have fun at the same time.
There you go.
I'm going to burn chicken and popcorn and all those things. I'm going to do homework. I'm going to just sit on the couch and do nothing with my kids and love every single second of it. I'm going to soak them up and smell their dirty little heads after school, and it's going to be fun.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're back, and you sound great. And your journey, I think, as you said earlier, has prepared you for this. I look forward to seeing you in person, and thanks for the visit on the podcast.
Thank you. I can't wait to talk with you more offline about your business and how it's working, Brad. Thank you so much for being an inspiration.
You got it, Kaley. There's Kaley O'Kelly, ABC 15 Mornings. She is back 4:30 to 7, and that is this week's Arizona Media Podcast.